All right, strap in, everyone, because we are going deep today, diving into, well, some pretty intense themes.
Oh, are we?
We are. We're tackling Arcane, that animated series, you know, the
Yeah.
one set in the League of Legends world.
Yeah. I know it. It's great.
You sent over this academic analysis, and it argues that the show isn't just entertaining, it's like a reflection of how we deal with hope and despair, like in the real world.
It's so cool how they use this fantasy world to, like, get at these really human experiences.
Exactly, and they really get to the heart of it by contrasting Piltover and Zaun. Piltover all shiny and advanced, the city of progress, and then Zaun struggling, poverty, exploitation, that shimmer drug.
Right. It's not just a visual difference. It's a metaphor for how hope and despair, like, play out in different places.
So, okay, let's start in Zaun. The source material talks about this, like heavy despair hanging over everything.
Yeah, and it makes you wonder, like, what does hope even mean when just surviving is a win? The analysis talks about constrained hope. It's when your hope is limited by the very systems that are holding you down.
So it's not that people in Zaun don't have hope. It's that their hopes are shaped by their circumstances.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what makes characters like Echo and the Firelight so interesting. They're fighting for something better, but they know their problems.
So their hope isn't naive.
Nope. It's informed hope.
Mm-hmm.
Realistic. And the source material argues that this kind of hope is actually stronger, because it knows the challenges are real, but it still pushes for change.
That makes sense. It's like they're not waiting for a miracle. They're making change happen.
Right. It connects to this idea of agency. Hope isn't just wishing. It's like doing something, even if it's small, to make things better.
Powerful stuff. But okay, what about Piltover? On the surface, it seems like they've got hope figured out. Technology, resources, the potential to make a better world.
True, but the analysis says don't be fooled. Piltover's progress comes at a cost. Their hope is it's often built on exploitation and inequality.
So it's a fake kind of hope then.
Well, the analysis uses the term illusory hope. It's hope that's based on, like, ignoring the bad stuff, the consequences.
And that ties into that whole idea of technology will fix everything, right?
Yeah.
Like we see it with Jace and Victor. They're so sure hex tech can solve all the problems.
Yeah, great connection. The source material uses those two, their different paths, to show how Piltover can inspire hope and lead to disappointment.
Because their hope is in the wrong place. Like they think technology can fix social problems without dealing with the root causes.
Exactly. And the analysis argues that this misplaced hope can be just as bad as despair. It blinds you to the real issues.
So we've got Zaun with limited hope, Piltover with a maybe fake hope, and both can be bad.
Yeah, in a way. But what's really interesting is how Arcane explores this through individual characters.
Yeah, let's dive into that. Starting with Jinx. Her story is so sad, but I wonder if there's more to her despair than just, the trauma she's been through.
You're onto something. The analysis says Jinx's story isn't just about trauma equals despair. It's about how her hope is, how do they put it? It's like it becomes all about other people.
Externalized.
Yeah. Like, think about it. When she's young, her hope is all about V, right? Getting her approval. But when their relationship falls apart, her hope, it turns inward. It becomes this, like, desperate need to get that connection back, even if it means doing bad things.
So her hope is dependent on someone else, not something inside her.
Right. And that makes her so vulnerable, because her hope is tied to something she can't control.
That's heartbreaking, but it adds so much depth to her character. It's not just going crazy. There are reasons for her despair.
And that's what makes Arcane so good. It doesn't just show these emotions, it analyzes them. The psychology, the social factors.
This is already blowing my mind. We haven't even talked about V, Victor, or Echo.
Oh, get ready. Each of their stories adds a whole new layer to how we see hope and despair, both personally and on a bigger scale.
All right, let's talk about V. So we've got Jinx with this, I guess you could say, fragile hope, right? V seems like the opposite. She's tough, a fighter.
Yeah, the analysis talks about her as having grounded hope, which is interesting. It's not like naive optimism, It's more like she understands how messed up things are and she still acts.
That makes sense. She's seen some rough stuff, Piltover, Zaun, all of it. But she keeps fighting for what's right, protecting people.
Exactly. And the source material points out her hope is tied to her actions. It's not just a feeling, it's what drives her to fight injustice, even when it seems impossible.
And what about her relationship with Caitlyn? Does that play into it, her hope?
Absolutely. The analysis argues that V and Caitlyn, together, it's like They represent a bridge between those two worlds, Piltover and Zaun. It's a little bit of hope, showing that maybe collaboration is possible, even between people who are so different.
Like, the relationship is saying hope can be a group thing. It gets stronger when people from different places work together.
That's a great point. It links to this bigger theme of community. Remember we talked about how hope in Zaun is like constrained. The source material says one way to break free of that is through collective action, finding strength in shared struggles.
So it's not just about being strong on your own. It's about communities supporting each other, building a better future together.
Exactly. And V, especially with the firelights, she really shows that.
Okay, so Jinx, fragile hope. V, grounded hope and community. Now, Victor, his story, it's a bit more complicated, isn't it?
Victor's interesting. He starts with this very specific kind of hope. It's called technocratic hope in the analysis. It's the belief that science, technology, that's the answer to humanity's problems.
Which, given his background, makes total sense. He's all about science. But then things change. He hits roadblocks, personal stuff, and the system itself holding him back.
Right. And the analysis points out his journey, it shows the dangers of putting all your faith in technology. It can be a tool for good, sure, but it's not a magic bullet. And if we only focus on tech solutions without dealing with social problems, the political stuff, we end up disappointed.
So Victor gets so focused on his goals, curing himself, pushing Hextech forward, that he forgets the bigger picture.
Yeah, exactly. He gets desperate, and he ends up turning to the hex core, which the analysis says is like a twisted version of hope.
There's like his hope itself becomes dangerous.
It does. It's a cautionary tale. Hope needs balance, right? We need to think about ethics and what the consequences of our actions might be.
Makes you wonder, though, did Piltover play a role in this? Their whole culture is progress, innovation, no matter the cost. Did their version of hope, the focus on tech above all else, did that make Victor's downfall almost inevitable?
That's a really good question, and it goes to the heart of what the analysis is getting at. Hope doesn't exist in a vacuum. It's shaped by the world around us, the culture, the systems we live in.
Okay, last one, Echo. How does his story fit in with all this? He seems to represent a totally different kind of hope than the others.
Echo is, he embodies hope that comes from community, creativity, fighting back. He sees the despair in Zaun, but he doesn't give in. He uses his skills, his connections, to build hope in the middle of all that darkness.
He's like a symbol of resistance, refusing to let the bad stuff win.
The analysis calls his hope transformative. It's not just surviving. It's about actively changing the system itself, breaking the cycles of poverty, the oppression.
It's bigger than just him, right? It's the firelights, the whole community he's created.
Exactly. Echo reinforces this idea. Hope is stronger when people act together. When they share what they have, support each other's dreams, fight for the same cause, then hope can actually change the world.
So we've got Jinx, fragile hope, Vi, grounded in action, Victor resents the dangers of tech-focused hope, and Echo hope as transformation. That's a lot to think about.
It is, and that's what makes Arcane so great. It's not just telling a story, it's making us think hard about what hope really is, what shapes it, how it can help us, but also mislead us.
It makes me think about my own life. My own experiences with hope, with despair, how those feelings have been affected by the people around me, the systems I've had to deal with.
That's exactly what the source material wants us to do. Think about these ideas in our own lives. Not just understand the characters, but use those insights to be more aware of how hope and despair work in our own world.
Okay, so we've talked about all these different kinds of hope. Constrained, grounded, was it technocratic? Transformative.
Yeah.
And we see how they play out for these characters. But what does the source material say about how Arcane itself sees hope and despair? Like, is it one or the other, or is there something more going on?
That's a great question, and it's something they really dive into in the analysis. It argues that Arcane doesn't treat hope and despair as, like, opposites. It's more like they're connected, always changing. They can exist together, even influence each other.
So it's not about picking one. It's more about understanding how they work together, how they shape our experiences.
Exactly. And the analysis says, at its core, Arcane is about finding hope within despair. It's saying, even when things are really bad, there's still a chance for things to get better.
That makes me think of the last scene. V and Caitlin looking out over Zaun, and the council chambers are burning. It's such a powerful image. Destruction, but also maybe a chance to rebuild.
Yeah, that's a great example of how Arcane visually shows us this complex idea, literal flames representing despair, but also The fire of hope,
Yeah.
like a revolution starting, people demanding change.
And it leaves you wondering what comes next. Will it be the same old stuff, or will something good actually come out of it all?
That's the question Arcane wants us to think about. And the analysis connects this to our lives. It argues that we all go through these cycles of hope and despair personally as a society. We have setbacks, see injustice, things that make us wonder if anything will ever get better.
But just like the characters, we can also find hope in those tough times, draw strength from our communities, and fight for something better, even when it seems impossible.
And that brings us back to agency, which is a big part of the analysis. It's not enough to just wish for change. We have to make it happen. Little acts of kindness, big social movements, whatever we do, it can all contribute to making things better.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, what's the takeaway? What should our listener be thinking about as they go about their day?
I think the analysis would say, think about your own relationship with hope and despair. Where do you see those forces in your life? What systems, what structures make you feel despair? And how can you, by yourself or with others, nurture hope, even when it's hard?
It's a call to action then, to be more aware of these cycles and to play a role in shaping a world where hope can win out.
Exactly. Remember, hope isn't just a feeling, it's a choice. It's acting on that belief that a better future is possible.
So, to everyone listening, as you deal with the ups and downs of your own world, remember what we've learned from Arcane. Find your people, your community. Hold on to that grounded hope. Don't be fooled by fake hope. And never stop fighting for a future where hope can transform things for the better.
And on that note, this has been our deep dive into Arcane. Thanks for joining us.